critical needs that we have is to connect our businesses who are struggling during this COVID-19 response period to the federal funding assistance that is provided through the SBDC and some of our lending institutions. And we also knew that more than just having you understand that these resources are out there, that we needed to help demonstrate how you can access them directly. So that is the point of today's workshop. It is a federal funding assistance walkthrough. But before we get started, it's my pleasure to introduce a couple of folks that are going to speak with you about some of the resources and information about the Northwest Chamber Alliance. So I'll start by introducing my good friend and colleague at the Longmont Chamber, Scott Cook, who's the president and CEO of that great organization and my partner in helping to bring this event together. Scott, welcome. Scott, are you there? Well, you know what? We might have lost our colleague, Scott, and I just, on his behalf, I want to just speak a little bit about the Northwest Chamber Alliance. The Northwest Chamber Alliance is an organization of all of the major chambers across the the Northwest region. That includes the Boulder Chamber, the Longmont Chamber, the Louisville Chamber, the Lafayette Chamber, the Latino Chamber, and the the Broomfield Chamber. So the Boulder County and Broomfield County Chambers of Commerce all coming together to represent our businesses and make sure their voices are heard collectively on issues of importance to the Northwest region. We represent over 3,000 businesses, over more than 250,000 employees, and it is a collective effort of all our chambers working together to represent and support the needs of our businesses in the Northwest region. So we also wanted to make sure that you understood that we have special relationship and partnership with the Latino Chamber, and they have some important information to share with all of you as well. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, who is the director of the Latino Chamber, Pete Salas. Pete, please take it away.
Thanks, John. As John indicated, I'm the current chair of the Boulder County Latino Chamber of Commerce. We are an entirely volunteer organization, and we primarily serve our mission is to serve, nurture, and support Latino businesses in Boulder County. To that end, we believe we play a unique role in serving the community. Currently what we're doing now is we're collecting data from all of our partners, other partners in the Northwest Chamber Alliance. As soon as we get information, we try to post it on our website. We translate everything that comes through into Spanish where it's appropriate, because many of our members, Latino businesses, many of our members are monolingual Spanish speakers. And so we're attempting to make sure that all the information that's vital to their health and well-being is transmitted to in Spanish. So that's one of the things we're actively working on. We're also partnering with some other groups. There are a couple of other groups in the county that are working specifically with the Latino community, the non-business community, the immigrant community, and we're trying to tie all of our pieces together so that we can provide a more comprehensive view of what's happening within the Latino community in Boulder County. So we're asking people that if you have information and we need to get it out, to send it to us. We have a team of people who are working on translating the materials and making sure that we post it on our website. And we're also one of the things that we're very concerned about. Hopefully we'll find some answers around the undocumented community, many of whom are business owners or work for businesses. So we have a partnership with a group that's working on that as well. So anytime we can connect people to resources, we are trying to do that, and we really are relying heavily on SBDC, other organizations, Longmont, Boulder, all the other chambers in the county. So anything that comes along, we're glad to share information that we have and to pass on information. So feel free to send us a note or to contact me. I'll make sure it gets into the right hands in terms of our team. And we have a very dedicated team of board members who've really stepped up to the plate in terms of responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So that's
Great.
it.
Thank you, Pete. And those are super valuable services for our businesses that need Spanish language assistance, as well as the great partnership that we have with all of our chambers across the Northwest Chamber Alliance. And I want to apologize on behalf of my friend Scott. We're all working with these new technologies, and he can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear him. So, and I know he would have done a better job presenting than I. And I also realized that I left off my good friend TJ at the Superior Chamber. So that's what goes with my last minute effort to recognize our organization. But let's just move into the content. And just to let you know, we reached out to the folks who are the experts in understanding the SBA resources that are available to us, in particular through the Paycheck Protection Program, and also a recognized leader in the lending institution side to help us walk through, as businesses, how we access those resources. So it's my good fortune to introduce a woman who, I should say, needs no introduction because she is literally recognized as the national leader in running a small business development center, and that is Sharon King, the executive director of the Boulder SBDC. She will walk us through what is the available resources that we can secure through the SBDC and SBA, and also the other resources available. So I'm going to hand it off to Sharon. Thank you, Sharon, so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, John. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all of the collaboration with all of the chambers that are in this alliance. We're going to talk a little bit later. I know some of you have been having some trouble accessing a lender to work with on the PPP program. And John and I and all of our partners have been working on contacting the lenders, putting together a list of who is working with their own customers, who is potentially working with new customers. And I think that will be quite helpful for everyone, and we'll keep updating that. I think the list will keep changing. So hopefully we can move this entire project forward. Okay, so the topic today is the CARES Act, the one particular program in the CARES Act that has been called a lot of things. And it is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. This is the one that people kind of know of as it goes turns from a loan into a grant. And we'll talk about how that happens and how the forgiveness works. Many of you have been doing quite a bit of research and may have been trying to do the application already. So I'm going to zip through the bones of this program, and it appears from the people we talk to that they get the point of it, which I'm going to repeat anyway, but they get the point of it, but it's some of the details that they get bogged in. I am going to try to answer some of that today. If we're not able to, we have a direct line into the SBA. We get answers quite quickly, and we'll be able to respond to your questions, and then we'll post FAQs so that other people can benefit from that as well. So today I'm going to talk about who's eligible, how do you apply, how much you can qualify for, and basically how you calculate how much you can qualify for, how you can spend the money, and some of the terms. It is a special program, and I should say that it is one of several programs. And one of the things that we do at the SBDC is to try to work with you so that you can kind of think through and evaluate how the numbers would play out for you with each of the programs so that you can make a business decision. You're the entrepreneur, you're taking the risk, you get to decide. Okay, first screen here we have the intention of the program. So it actually is quite easy to understand if you really understand that it is intended to cover payroll. And that we'll keep coming back to that. That really is what it's meant to do. It got expanded to a small degree, but that's really the point of the program. Forgiveness is based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salary levels. And so even if you have laid off, furloughed, job attached your employees, you can bring them back within the time of this program and still qualify for the program. Forgiveness will be reduced if full-time headcount declines or if salaries and wages decrease. And there's a formula for that. We won't get into it today, but we can help you figure it out. We're going to talk more about that later. Okay, who is eligible? There were two dates here that were given, April 3rd, last Friday, and April 10th, this coming Friday. So the 501c3s, all of the small businesses, tribal business concerns, veteran organizations, and sole proprietorships were able to theoretically apply last Friday. There were some challenges, and I know that everybody is sticking with it and trying to do more. This is a really huge program that's been stood up in a very short time. So bear with us, or bear with the Treasury and the SBA, and it will get worked out, and they are making changes to it as we speak. On April 10th, self-employed individuals and independent contractors can apply, and that points right to the gig economy. And so there we get lots of questions, and the answer is yes. A small business traditionally has to have 500 or fewer employees. I'll talk about one exception to that that is near and dear to my heart. In this case, you have to have been in business on February 15th, 2020. And you have to show that you were harmed by COVID-19. So this special rule that I've been talking about, basically, if you're in the accommodation and lodging industry, restaurants especially, which means you have a NAICS code of 772 with 6 digits after that. And if you don't know what a NAICS code is, I'm happy to tell you that offline. Instead of a 500 rule for your entire company, everything rolled up under one entity, it is a 500 rule per physical location. So per restaurant, per hotel. And that makes a big difference to some of the companies that we get to work with. Okay, how do you apply? The common recommendation and the first line to take is to contact your own bank. Even if you have a bank and you make deposits through your phone and you never really talk to a teller, that is your bank. And that's the first place to go, especially if they appear on our lender list. And our lender list is what is the next point. As I mentioned, John and I and other collaborators put together a list, contacted all the lenders. We started with the city of Boulder, which we have right now, some greater area than that. We're expanding to Boulder County probably by Monday. And then the entire state, the SBDCs in the entire state will be trying to do the same thing to make sure that everybody knows who they can go to tap into this loan. I'm sure John will be sending this information out directly after this call. Okay, we talked a little about the dates. How much can you qualify for? So the calculation of the maximum loan amount, the amount that you can have forgiven, is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. literally. You figure out your average monthly payroll, multiply it by 2.5. The key, of course, is to figure out your average monthly payroll. There's a couple of ways to do that. For most businesses, most small businesses who have been around for a while, you're going to take the 12-month period from March 2019 to February 2020. And it's the past 12 months. The program started February 15th, 2020. If you're a new business, you don't have those dates and you don't have payroll on those dates. So you're able to look at January and February from this year. If you're a seasonal business, there are two different ways that you can do that start time. You're still looking at you're looking at the 12-week period. And basically what you're trying to do here is compare the period of this program, which is February 15th to June 30th, to the same period a year ago. You're trying to show that you have economic injury because of COVID. And so you're looking at the same exact time period just 1 year ago. They do give you an option of whether you want to start that 12-week period February 15th or March 1st. And really, it's up to you. You take a look at your numbers and decide which one will actually be a better match for what you're looking for. Payroll expenses, what is eligible? I'm not going to read them all. Eligible and not eligible. Essentially, all payroll expenses are eligible. And you want to put in, I'm going to give you some caveats. You want to add into this equation all of the compensation, all of payment for vacation, medical sick leave, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, and some other items. We probably say this on a later slide, but excuse me. They definitely cap salaries at $100,000. So it doesn't mean that someone making over $100,000 does not get their salary entered into it at all. It means that if you make $150,000, only $100,000 can be included in the calculation. Basically, you're adding all of those payroll expenses up. There are some things that will not be eligible, which are listed also on this slide. You are coming up with your average monthly payroll expense. So if it was a whole year that you were looking at, you're dividing it by 12. It's higher math. And then you're taking that to show your banker, lender, whoever is going to be working on the loan with you. I'm going to skip a little to how you can use the money and qualify for loan forgiveness. There's a step in the middle, and that is that you go to your bank, you work with your banker. There are things that may be requested, questions that may be asked. But I'm going to let that get addressed by Susan and Heath following me. And I think they have the best perspective more than I do on what the lender is looking for. Basically, so we're going to move to loan forgiveness. And for most people that are doing this, what you're looking for is to be able to figure out the maximum payroll amount per month, come up with the amount that you might qualify for the loan, and then make sure that you use the proceeds of the loan in a way that is all eligible costs so that the loan will then be forgiven. And that is why they call it a loan that turns into a grant. A very important thing here is that to make sure that the expenses are eligible, 75% or more of what you spend it on has to be payroll costs. As we go back to what I said, the intention of the loan is to pay to keep your employees. 75% or more of what you get in this is for payroll. There are some other expenses that are allowable, and I'll mention them in a second, but only 25% of the money or less can be used for those expenses. And some of those costs are interest payments on another mortgage obligation, rent, utilities, interest on other debt obligations, but only 25% or less of the money can be used for that. Okay, this is quite a different loan from the SBA 7A program. And I won't go into what 7A does, but this loan is a 2-year term. If it were to turn into a full loan, you would have 2 years to pay it back. The interest rate is 1%. That is very, very low. There are no personal guarantees. There's no collateral required. This is all the good news. There's no collateral required. There are no fees either by the lender or by the SBA. There are no prepayment penalties. If this turns into a loan and the entire amount is not forgiven and you decide to pay off the balance 3 days after you learn that, you're done. Loan payments will be deferred for 6 months as part of the program. I think it's very unusual. I'm sure that you know that all of these terms are extremely unusual when you're going to borrow money. So we talked through quite a bit here of the details and the bones. The point that I would like to make is that there are a series of programs that have been put forward in this rescue that we're all in with both feet. There's a huge effort to help small businesses survive and to help employees keep their jobs and keep people employed, especially so that we can start quickly when things turn around. The big point, though, is that you really need to do the numbers on all of these programs, understand your own situation and how you fit in, and then make your decisions. There are lots of options, and sometimes the decisions have to be made when you feel like you don't have all of the information yet. We'll try to help you. So the Small Business Development Center is a nonprofit that works with small businesses, all types, everything from mom and pops to the most advanced science and engineering firms. Our small business, our center in Boulder, headquartered in Boulder, we have an office in Longmont as well at the Longmont Chamber. So we serve Boulder County, and then because we have created programs for advanced industries and technology programs, we do those programs statewide. We are one SBDC, one center of 15 in the state. And then we all roll up into the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Lots of resources there to tap into. And then all of the SBDCs around the country roll up into underneath the SBA. We're here to help you. There's lots of resources that we have to provide. There's some that I put up on the screen. The SBA actually is a good resource to start with, because if it's up there, you know that it's correct. And you know there's a lot of materials being put out. You have to be a little bit wary about where you're getting your information. ColoradoSBDC.org is the statewide SBDC network, and all of the 15 centers I mentioned earlier provide information into that center. It's constantly updated. We try to put together the most useful materials. We just had one of our subject matter experts put together a screen-by-screen video. How do you apply for an EIDL loan? So it's really useful information that you can tap into there and on our Boulder SBDC website. The SBDC works with businesses in 3 ways. We do one-on-one consulting at no cost to your business ever. We do all kinds of workshops and programs, events that will be useful to small businesses. And then we're a connection to resources. So if we have a partner that is able to help you with a specific subject matter expertise, that we don't have or we didn't decide to grow, because why duplicate? We're going to make that connection for you and pass you on, do a warm handoff. We do a series called Keeping Your Business Together. We have one coming up tomorrow. And that will be about how all of these programs I just mentioned all work together and how you make the decision on what you should do for your business. We have initiated a daily call, kind of a hotline call. You call in with your question and we'll have it, either have an answer for you or get it for you as quickly as we can. And that's from 8 to 8:30 every morning. And several of those days are in Spanish. So going back to what Pete Salas referred to, number one, several of our specialists working on the COVID crisis and helping you to navigate all these programs are Spanish speaking. So there's no issue there. We can get you to them, just ask if that's your preference. We do lots of programming in Spanish. We do a boot camp, and just, if you go to our website, bouldersbdc.com, you'll see it all. John, I think I'm gonna end there. I think I will turn it over to Susan and Heath and let them.
Great. Well, Sharon, let me just chime in and first thank you. And I will say that just the presentation you did and the simplicity of the way you walked us through a very complex registration process and the information is just indicative of the support that we get from your great services at the SBDC. So thank you so much, Sharon. So now we wanted to take you from the bigger picture of the programs and the resources that are available to just, you know, what your expectations would be as you walk in the door of your lending institution. And I'll just remind everybody that I know that there is a search from many to identify a lending institution partner to support you through the accessing the SBA resources. And we will, as Sharon said, share after this presentation a complete list of the lending institutions in Boulder County that are available for all of you to outreach to. But one of the great organizations and lending institutions in our community is Flatiron Bank, and they have great experience partnering with the SBDC and helping our businesses through these access opportunities to SBA funding support. And we have leaders from Flatiron Bank, Susan Moratelli, who's the Vice President of Private Banking for Flatirons Bank, and Heath Kinsland, who's the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, again, for Flatirons Bank. They are here and will walk you through just that nuts and bolts as you walk in the door of your bank and how to access those resources. So I hand it off to you, Susan and Heath, and thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Heath and myself and Flatirons Bank, we appreciate the opportunity to be at the table with all of these great leaders in our community during this time of crisis. And you know, and so with that being said, just diving right into it, I'm going to joke about one thing that John talked about. Walking into the bank these days may be less popular than it was a month ago, but the point is well taken that you want to start with your current banking relationship to explore options that are available for your small business. And that might be through an email, website, phone call, whatever your resources are for your particular bank. We are working with primarily our own existing customers, but we have also been approached by many non-current clients. So we will be working through that as we learn more by the day, by the hour in some cases. Sharon did a great job of summarizing the options that are available and the process. And before we get into the actual form, and I'm going to ask Heath to add his comments in a moment as well, I just want to summarize it by saying that the program is designed to be a streamlined, quick response to keep small businesses going, small business is the backbone of our country, let alone our community. And we are all in for this effort. My team of, we're the only independent community bank headquartered in Boulder County, and our small team just, embraced the guidance that the SBA has been issuing to develop our own processes to mobilize the, first steps as best we could. And I'm real proud to be part of our team. Summarizing how you approach this after you make your own business decisions based on your eligibility and what you are prepared to request for loan assistance, the first steps of the program are real streamlined and smooth. The real proof and the diligence that you're doing at this stage will become critical later in the program at loan forgiveness time. So have that in mind as you gather supporting documents, because you're in that mindset now where you are doing your calculations on what is my average monthly payroll times 2.5%, or 2.5 times. That is the number that you're starting with. And then you're evaluating other expenses that can be included in the program, coming up with a number. And what I'll say to you is that if you claim it, if you try to borrow this, you must be able to prove it. So your reports, invoices, all of that information should be presented to your lender as supporting documentation for the numbers that you're arriving at. They are, the SBA and the SBD, all lenders that are participating in this program are likewise trying to streamline our very regulated processes for issuing loans. And it's, it's not our normal environment. We're relying on your good faith presentation. And this is where, again, relationships become critical. There's a phrase we hear in business called know your customer. The more familiar your lender is with your business, the easier it is for us to do our jobs and accept your good faith representations. There is some variance that is allowable because the SBA is trying to streamline this. So, we're working with that as part of our due diligence when we review the information you're presenting. It's about a 10% variance, but we do want this to be as accurate as possible because we don't like surprises now or especially at the end of the process. So many people are going into this with the expectation that it is a grant, and therefore loan forgiveness is a key benefit of this program. We don't want you to be, shocked when you can't document or prove something that you claimed, and then you do have a repayment obligation. The borrower is the business. As Sharon said, there is no personal guarantee collateral. So be completing this with the viewpoint of your business as the borrower. I won't go into the terms because Sharon did a great job of encapsulating that. We've heard, just in conversations I've been having, some folks are having varying degrees of success with communicating with their banks. So, I ask always that people appreciate this unprecedented time in our history, in my lifetime, and I'm sure a lot of you as well. So we all appreciate your patience and your diligence in preparing this information so that it's as easy for us to process it as possible. And I know we're going to be taking some Q&A opportunities at the end of all of this, so we'll come back to this at the appropriate time. And with that, I'm going to ask my colleague Keith Kinsland, who is leading our team effort at Flatirons Bank, and we're just working hard and following his leadership. And I ask Keith to add his comments and walk us, and then we can go through that form step by step. Keith?
Thanks, Susan. And John, thank you for inviting us. Sharon, thanks for including us. I would just add on a few thoughts to Susan's capable presentation on what we needed, what you need to know about this. A couple of thoughts that flavor the whole process, I think. First, every bank has been figuring this out as they go. The broad guidance was provided mid last week, but as we all know, the devil's always in the details, and every business is a unique entity in and of itself, and everybody's situation is unique. So every time we talk to a potential recipient of one of these loans, we really are sussing out all the little nuances that might impact your forgiveness in this and turning it from a loan back into a grant. So be patient with your lender, whoever that is. We're all figuring this out as we go. Secondly, don't spend a ton of time on your forms and documents until you speak to your lender and get some guidance on how to pull all that together. We're finding that in many cases, we're having to send our clients back to do a different loan form because of affiliated businesses. So maybe it's a company has two different divisions, or maybe it's a unique ownership in two small business, common ownership in two small businesses. Those things can fall under the affiliate rules, so it would require be filed as one application. The moral of the story there is, before you spend a ton of time on pulling documents together, have an initial conversation with your banker to make sure that pulling things together in a way that's most efficient. Don't forget to include things like health insurance and retirement plan payments. Those are restricted to the dollars that are spent by the business. So just whatever your company's paying for in terms of their employees' health insurance or 401k, that can be included in that monthly average. Susan brought up a really good point on, if you claim it, be able to back it up. And the counsel I've been giving to my clients is, treat this like it's a tax return. You'd never put something on your tax return that you couldn't prove later on in case somebody asks you about it. The bank is not, any bank you go to, is not going to verify all your utility documents, all your lease payments. We're going to collect the source documents so that they're in file. We're going to probably have, most banks will have their own tool that will help you calculate average monthly payroll, so make sure to ask for that. And then we're going to collect the application. And the Treasury Department has instructed banks that our responsibility and accountability really is just to do a good faith estimate of, do these numbers look right? So when you turn in your application, you're certifying that you calculated your loan numbers, and you are attesting that they're accurate and true. And so we take that and just try to make sure that the math all adds up. That's important, because at the end of the day, when you go back to ask for forgiveness, we're going to be coming back to you for documents that will help us acquire that for you. So it's really a different process than your typical loan underwriting process, because this really isn't a loan. It's intended to be a grant when all the conditions are met. So just to kind of summarize, have a good one-on-one conversation with your bank before you start the process. That you're claiming. And 3, I probably wouldn't wait too terribly long to get this started with your bank if you haven't already. I think the $359 billion is what's been allocated. Anything could happen. More money could be allocated to this program, but you wouldn't want to take a chance in that. So this is something that can be useful to your business. I would probably approach that pretty quickly with your banker. We just really appreciate the opportunity to be involved. Flatiron's a community bank based in Boulder. We cover Boulder County and sort of the contiguous counties. And it's not often that bankers get to be a source of some real important community service work like this. And so we're just real pleased that we've been able to help about 125 companies in Boulder County with this process, some of which were not clients ahead of time. And we're asking to consider becoming clients of Flatirons Bank as we've earned the privilege to ask for that. So with that, I will wrap up and turn it back over to Sharon.
And this is Susan jumping in again. We may go through the form now. Perfect. Thank you so much. Sharon is she's our stage manager for the form. The document itself, and I want to go back to a comment that was made earlier in the presentation. The best source of this information is going to be the resource websites that Sharon pointed out with, the SBA, your SBDC. Those kind of points of contact are where you should be gathering the bulk, the important details of the program. Just like Dr. Fauci says so many times in the media, you don't want to necessarily follow what's being presented in the media, because it's, if you think it's being presented through the lens or filter of whoever that source is, reporter or organization. So this is straight from the true source, the SBA, the Paycheck Protection Program. It's been evolving daily. The application was released to the public last Wednesday, and it has already been updated several times. But what we're looking at now is the final version. It's a 4-page total document. The last 2 pages are your disclosures. So you want to put your time in, obviously, on the first 2 pages. And it's the fields of data entry kind of adjust based on the number of characters you're putting in. So it's pretty straightforward, where you're starting with if there's a trade name in that upper right-hand corner, then you go to the legal name, and that is your organizational document. So your how you file as either a sole proprietorship or a partnership or an LLC or an S corporation, or the typical organizations. Nonprofit organizations have those kind of legal names. That's mostly who we're dealing with, are small business holders and nonprofits. And your business address, this would be what you use for your organizational documents. I believe they prefer the physical address. Many have a PO box. Going over to your tax ID number and your business phone number. Your primary contact, this is probably the person that is completing this application. And that's, so that would be appropriate to put in there. It's going to be typically the financial leader of the business or the owner themselves. Email address, here's where calculation comes in. And your numbers in preparation should flow and be able to be compared favorably with the supporting documents. Your average monthly payroll is a lump sum, and your calculation is right there, times 2.5%. The EIDL, as Sharon pointed out, a jargon name I've heard is the EIDL loan. That's your economic impact disaster loan. It's a separate program, not part of the PPP, so there can be no duplication of purpose. So keep in mind that this is purpose-driven, and back to the guiding principle of retaining employees through this health crisis. And so if you have any overlap, that cannot be included. And then your loan request should be that calculation, your payroll times 2.5%, and that's your ask number. Number of employees is just what it is, your calculations. And then you can, in the check boxes below that, indicate the source of the number that you're requesting. Most cases, Heath and I are seeing payroll, and then you can include the other categories, but keep in mind those are less than 100%. So payroll is where the biggest bang for your buck. That's where the most of the loan forgiveness will be derived from. The other categories are a percentage up to 25%. The applicant ownership, pretty clear. We're looking for majority owners of 20% or more. If there are more than fit here, a supplemental addendum document is appropriate. And it is important for you to identify the tax IDs and addresses. This is going back to the fact that the SBA is a federal tax supported program. So keep in mind that, this is a full circle opportunity. You're applying for relief as a business borrower, and you're helping to support this with your own business tax dollars, however they get reported, whether it's direct through your company or if it's distributions to you personally. We're all in this together at every level. So what we do today is important. Sorry, go ahead on to the next part of that, page 1. These are very important questions where there are a combination of answers to make sure that you are qualified, that you're accurately presenting the position of the business, and it helps you think through what you're actually applying for as well, with dates and descriptions. And it's kind of, gives some thought as you read through these. And I don't know that I necessarily want to do that unless anybody feels differently, but, go in order, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, these are yes, no questions, and there's a qualifier there. If the questions below that, 5 or 6, are yes answers, then you won't be approved. There are lines for initials. We want you, as the person completing this application, to indicate that you have given this thoughtful consideration, and you're indicating that. If we get a document turned in without the initials, we do return it, because we don't want any hiccups. We don't want any additional challenges to this process. We want it to be smooth, and it's a complete assignment or it's not. So again, just be careful and thoughtful as you complete that page 1. And then I believe we're on to the second page.
Susan, just if we could wrap up relatively quickly just to get to some questions, that'd be great.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay, that's pretty clear. I think I'm done. Again, just summarizing, if you claim it, be able to prove it. And that's really the bulk of it.
All right, this has been excellent walkthrough. And I know that as a result of any great walkthrough, you're gonna have a number of then detailed questions. So we are not gonna get to all of them in this presentation, but I can tell you that we are recording all the questions, and we plan to respond to them and have those answers available in conjunction with the video, access to the video. But let's just get started with a few of them. And I'm gonna have Sharon and Susan and Heath just be available to whoever feels compelled to answer the question first. Please go ahead. We'll have some sort of award at the end, whoever answers the most. But here we go. If you are a sole proprietor, do you have 0 or 1 employee?
Okay, so even though we have 2 bankers here who are far more qualified than I'm going to say you have 1 employee. Now, it really depends on how you pay yourself, because you need to show it as payroll. But I'm going to leave it at that for now, and then we'll follow up and give you more information about how a sole proprietor would calculate their payroll.
Okay, so another question. Can the funds be used for payroll taxes, FED, W/H, I'm embarrassed, I don't know, Social Security, and Medicare? Am I stumping the experts here?
No, hang on, I'm looking. Honestly, I believe the answer is no. But I don't want to give you information that is not completely correct.
Okay, well, you know what?
That's my understanding as well.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful, Sue. Thank you. Okay, next question. How does the PPP work for 1099 employees? Is it possible to become possible for a loan to become a grant as well?
Our guidance, and we haven't received complete guidance from the SBA yet on the contractors, but our guidance is that it would be as long as payroll or
Okay, did we lose volume? Did we
I
lose?
think we lost Heath.
that you
Okay.
requested on the loan.
Okay, let me pick up where Heath was. The answer is yes. 1099 employees the information can be captured. Basically, you're pulling together all of your 1099s in order to do that. That would be the documentation. 1099s, for anyone who doesn't know, that's the document that a contractor receives at the end of the year from whoever paid them during that time. And yes, it can be forgiven. That's the intention of this loan.
Okay, I'm going to give Sharon full credit for that and Heath a half a credit for that answer. So there you go. Okay, here, I am a small business. We do not have a group health insurance plan, but we do have individual plans that the business pays for. Would this be deductible under the PPP loan?
So Heath and Susan, before I go out on a limb, would you like to take that?
Yeah, we would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say yes as well.
Okay, perfect.
So for any of these, John, for any of these, we can go back and just completely make 100% sure that everything we're saying in detail is going to help the person who asked.
So take this as a preliminary response. Can landlords be compensated for lost or reduced rents? If so, how?
All right, I'm stumped.
Most of the time, landlord type income comes to the landlord through a Schedule C very frequently, which is not, you can't include it in a PPP loan request. We've had several clients who come to us to apply for PPP for that sort of thing, and we are, our guidance that we've received has been to not process those. They're not eligible.
So just to follow up, the economic injury disaster loan may very well be what is a better fit for that question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's another question. In the number of, in the jobs box number, do I put my number of employees today? We already laid off one person last week. That's a common question I've heard.
We're looking for average number over the measurement period. So the period you measured your payroll over, you see an average number of full-time employees. So in other words, if you have 2 part-times, you would only report 1 person there. That's 1 full-time person.
Okay, great.
But it's the time that you calculate payroll over.
Great, Heath. Okay. What are the criteria for being harmed by COVID-19?
Keith, you look like you want to answer, and I will let you if you're, I'm happy to do it.
I'm going to let you.
Okay. So harmed in the sense of economic injury. So, I mean, you have a business, you were not able to keep your doors open because people have to shelter in place. I mean, it's the economic harm that is being discussed here.
Okay. I think we'll accept that as, I think that just clarifies it. And
okay, John, let me.
Oh, go ahead.
It's been said many times, and I don't know if it's in this application, and basically Heath and Susan can answer, but I know in the EIDL application, it's really important to include that discussion about the harm to your business and to say COVID-19.
Okay. Okay, here's another question. Can we add S Corp net profit as payroll calculations?
No.
No.
Okay. Great. Always the simple ones are nice. Okay, hold on, just getting a little.
Give us another softball, John. Bring us home.
Well, I'm going through them here, and there's some challenging ones. Okay, here's a particular life circumstance. I have already filled out the streamlined application last week. Do I just wait to hear from someone? I also filled out something on another bank's who they do my business personal banking with, but they sent out a message that they may not get to me due to volume. Am I out of luck?
So can I take the first part of that for
Please
you
do.
guys? I'm guessing that the streamlined application is not PPP, but they're talking about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance Grant. It's EIDL Advance. It was a very complicated application for a loan. It got changed to a very streamlined application. And if I understand it correctly, the SBA is catching up on those. So I'm guessing that you will hear more about that very soon. Part two of the question?
It is if they said the bank said they were closed out, are they out of luck? What should they do?
I'm going to jump in and ask Heath to add to it. One excellent point Heath made earlier on was that you do want to make contact with your banker, and you also don't want to be applying through more than one bank. You want to be intentional, and you want to make sure that your application is appropriately proceeding. Just completing it and submitting it doesn't mean that it's then being pushed through the SBA portal system. And I can't speak for other banks. I'm hearing this commonly among some folks that I'm speaking to. And I'm going to ask Keith to jump in to finish our answer.
I know it's 2 o'clock, so I'll just keep it real short. I think that if you've got an application that your bank said you're going to get to you, I'd want something written back from them saying that they have not submitted that to the SBA. And then I would find another bank you got some sort of connection with, either your employer or through your CPA, some other connection to a bank that maybe can help you.
Okay. All right. Well, as I said, we have so many questions. They continue to come in. This is obviously a topic that we are going to continue to focus on to make sure that our businesses can access the resources of the SBA through this period. So I want to start by thanking, first of all, Sharon with the SBDC. Thank you so much for your service and of your great team at the SBDC. And then also Heath and Susan from Flatirons Bank, great partner. And also just thank you for just walking us through the details of how to access resources from your lending institution. A couple of last comments. One, we will make sure to have this presentation recorded and available through all of our Northwest Chamber Alliance chamber members, as well as the slides and that list of lending institutions that are available in Boulder County, but I imagine many of them also for Broomfield County as well. And then I'll just close by thanking my partners with the Northwest Chamber Alliance. We are a great team of chambers supporting all of you through Boulder and Broomfield counties. We represent your business interests in good times and in difficult times. And I can tell you that we're going to be working collaboratively to support our businesses and make sure that we get back up on our feet and maintain the economic vitality that we so enjoyed just a few weeks ago. Look forward to all of our chambers as resources for information and presentations, and the Northwest Chamber Alliance will be presenting other information throughout the COVID response period. So thank you all for being with us, and cheers to good health and future prosperity as we move through and recover from COVID-19. Thank you.